On the line right now, Ari Fleischer, former Bush White House press secretary. We thought it'd be a good day to have him in, given that, we've got another White House press secretary who's having to juggle a lot of things right now, a number of scandals. We thought.
Did you hear that laugh, that Schadenfreude giggle going on there?
Because he knows what it's like. That's right. Ari, how are you? Good morning.
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, I want to start out by reading something to you that's on Politico this morning. This is, Mike Allen does that morning column over there. And let me just read the first line, and I want you to sort of comment on it. After suffering hits from Beltway elites for missteps in handling the perfect storm of controversies, the West Wing got its mojo back yesterday. Do you think that they've got their mojo back after what happened yesterday?
Well, I don't know what right word would be to sum up what 1/4 of mojo is, but maybe they got one letter in mojo.
They got the M back, okay.
They're starting, they're trying, but they're spinning wheels is how I look at it, and that's because the problems are so deep across the board. And let me start with the IRS.
Okay.
The IRS engaged in what is likely to be, as the Department of Justice inquires, very serious crimes. And then they lied about their crimes. They tried to hide their crimes. They misled Congress about their crimes. And the crimes are of such a fundamental nature because they put their finger on the scales of how justice is handled in America. That affects elections. That affects the integrity of the IRS. It's deep. And we still don't know how it got started. The Inspector General couldn't get anybody to tell him. So I don't think the president has really got his mojo back. I think the president is trying to do something at least, but we're at the beginning of this, I have to say.
Well, the thing that I keep coming back to is that the constant mantra from the State Department, the Justice Department, and the president these days seems to be this. Oh, we didn't know this was going on. We had no earthly idea this stuff was happening. I mean, at some point, isn't that sort of a dumb thing for the White House to admit?
Well, if it's the truth, they have to admit it. It beats the alternative, which is we knew what was going on at the IRS and we let it go. And so they're going to look bad no matter what. But that is one of the uncomfortable lessons that you do learn when you're the press secretary. There are times when all you can do is say that we defer to the Department of Justice. They're investigating it. The IG is looking into it. It's terribly awkward. It turns the press secretary, and this is why I chuckled. It gives me the fond memories of when I stood at the podium and assumed the position of a human piñata.
That's right.
And the press's job is just to pound you, and you have to stay there until the facts are known.
I always wonder, Ari, when you lay there in the quiet of your bedroom and it's dark in your eye, do you still hear Helen Thomas saying, Ari, Ari?
Oh, goodness. Until this week, I confess I had not watched a White House press briefing.
Oh, really?
Really?
Oh, no. I loved what I did. I was in Washington for 21 wonderful years, and of course 2.5 at the White House. But what's funny, when you leave, it's not hard to start reading the sports section first.
Yeah,
I believe it. Well, let's talk about the role of the White House press secretary here, because I think it's being confused by a lot of people. Some people think that his job, or he or she, whoever holds that position, their responsibility is to deliver facts and information and help facilitate a conversation between the administration and the media and the press. But it looks as though, in many respects, it's really just a talking points job. It's the real job is to just sort of, obscure and try to get the administration's official line out, but that doesn't necessarily always coincide with the facts.
Well, at its core, the timing of what the press secretary can say never aligns with the timing of what the press wants to know. And by that I mean the press wants all the answers immediately to everything, and they want it now. And often in government, and this, I'm not taking Jay Carney, the press secretary's side, but this is the reality, the White House still has work to do to figure things out. Not everything lines up immediately, and they've got to let people make the inquiries, be thorough and careful about it. And that means the press secretary is trapped because he cannot answer yet what the outcomes are going to be.
All right, but there is this one thing he has said repeatedly, that the White House made only one stylistic edit to the talking points. And we've seen they released the emails finally under a lot of pressure. We already seen some earlier reporting on it. I look at these emails and I say, you know what? That's just simply not true.
Well, on that issue, I think you're entirely right about that, and I think the emails show that's right. But, it's not just the emails. There are also phone calls. There's conversations, and there's a worldview that first comes into form. And the worldview of the Obama administration right after Benghazi was, we're running for re-election. We've told the American people that al-Qaeda is decimated. we cannot afford to let this be called a
Yeah,
terrorist attack, especially when the president was traveling to Nevada for a campaign event the next day instead of going to the Situation Room.
I completely agree, but and I just want to bear down on this. If he went out there and said this thing that we now know is not true, and he knew it was not true when he said it, doesn't he have an obligation to sort of say, that's it, I have to resign, I basically have no credibility? On the other hand, if he got sent out to say something that he thought was true, that others sent him out to say, and they knew it wasn't true, doesn't he have an obligation then to say, I can't do this job anymore?
Well, the fight over the talking points has increasingly become semantic about whether they stylistically changed one word or not. And as I say, people shouldn't just get fixated on the talking points. There are a whole other series that force people to make decisions at the White House beyond emails.
Right.
And whether or not Jay was right or wrong about stylistic, can you argue that comes within the press secretary's ability to use different words? I don't think that rises to the resignation level.
Okay.
That's Jay's job, is to fight for the White House position. Their bigger problem on Benghazi is what YouTube video.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Ari Fleischer is our guest, former Bush White House press secretary. And I wonder, Politico just did a little montage. And Jay Carney really has had a tough couple of weeks, and there was a montage of him, I think, over 130 times responding to a question saying, I appreciate the question. I appreciate the question. It's one of his things.
Then the other one was unfettered. He said unfettered about 300 times.
But did you ever really appreciate the questions when it was obviously an uncomfortable question?
I guess if you use the same phrase over and over again, it fills up enough time, you can get off the podium faster.
Right, exactly.
But you know what that really is? It gives you just a second to think.
Yeah.
You say it, and it just gives you like 2 or 3 seconds to sort of formulate your answer.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. And one tip I would give reporters is ask very short questions. Never give the press secretary time to think.
Oh, that's good. All right.
That's interesting.
For all you budding White House correspondents out there, there's a tip from the master, Ari Fleischer. Thanks so much for joining us today, Ari.
Don't miss it at all, do you?
No, I miss my old boss. I miss all my old colleagues that I worked with. But, it's a wonderful, wonderful place to be, the White House. It doesn't matter what party you are. But when your time comes to go, your time has come to go, and you should enjoy the next stage in life. And that's where I am.
All right, Ari. It's good hearing from you. Good to hear your voice.
Good to say hello. Thank you.
Ari Fleischer, former Bush White House press secretary. Thanks for joining us on WMAL.